Okay, we're in Perek Lamed Aleph, chapter 31. On top is page 80, and at the bottom it's 144. Okay, so the Rebbe is explaining the way a person breaks himself, when you need to bust yourself because the fire can't catch on to the thick log. So you have to start thinking you're no good. He says, I will bring you to depression. No, on the contrary, it's going to bring you to realization of how much more you could do. And like he says, the Neshama is in Golus, the Neshama is in exile. It's like the prince of the son of the king is in exile. And you can imagine this joy of the king when the son comes out of exile. So he says like this, and we're going to start for 7 lines from the end of the page, 80 on top, 144 at the bottom. He says the person should say, I didn't make myself. Who put my neshama in the body? I didn't do it. Hashem did it. That's what we just learned last week. So he says now, why Taka did Hashem? Yeah, Hashem put my neshama in exile, in the body. Shabam is terrible things. Why did Hashem do it though? To take down a part of its essence, because the neshama is a chelik, a part of Hashem. Will be a mamala v'seviklam that permeates the world, encompasses the world. V'kula kamekol echoshev, and it's all the essence of it. Nothing is anything compared to Hashem. These few lines we learned already. And where does Hashem bring it? Will be shebemishcha dechivya, and He brings it into a serpent skin. The tipas rucha and the putrid dap. Why does Hashem do this? This is where we left off. Aims at the only reason why Hashem did this is tzerich aliyah, to become elevated. There is in Yiddishkeit no such thing as a downer for the sake of down. Hashem doesn't make down things. Anytime Hashem makes something down, it's only because it can jump up to a higher place. Meaning, it's for the sake of elevation, lahalis Hashem, to elevate to Hashem, kol nefesh achiyunis, the whole animal soul, which comes in the neutral level of evil. And all the garments of the animal soul, which are, like we learned before, machshava dibura ma'aseh shala. Okay, what is the purpose of my neshama coming into the body? If you think about it, the neshama is in Gan Eden, the neshama is in bliss, the neshama is enjoying godliness, is basking in Hawaii in godliness, in paradise of godliness. Why in the world does Hashem, there's a question always asked all over Chassidus, and Dr. Rebbe's Maimorim especially. Why did Hashem do this? To lower such a holy neshama, part of Hashem, into such a low body. And the Chassidus elaborates on that more. The neshama itself is perfect. It doesn't need to be rectified. It doesn't need to be perfected. What is the purpose he's saying here? It's to elevate the world, the animal soul, the garments of the animal soul, thought, speech, and action of the animal soul. How do you elevate the animal soul? By taking the power of your animal soul, meaning the physical thought, power of thought, speech, and action that we have, and to do thought, speech, and action for Torah. That means the nefesh habamis, the animal soul, is what gives us life. Okay, unless you're a tzaddik that killed the Yetzer Hara, then you only live from the godly soul. 99.9999% of us live from the animal soul. Where do we get the life from? From the animal soul. So the animal soul is giving us the ability of intellect, emotions, and thought, speech, and action. How do we elevate that animal soul? So when a person utilizes the thought for thinking Torah, and the speech of davening and learning, and action to do action of mitzvahs, like he says, like he says later on, and a few prokim, inyan halaw zu bariches, how you elevate this, and the Alter Rebbe will explain it at great length, and you meditate, that's the purpose of creation. Now, the Rebbe is going to explain in Perek Lamed Vav, what's the purpose of creation, the Medrash says? Because Hashem wanted a dwelling place down here. What does down here mean? Now, the Rebbe asks a very simple question. Down and up is only in a realm of limitation. Higher means closer, down means lower means further. If Hashem is all over, how in the world can it be higher and lower? If Hashem is all over, there is no concept. There can't be a concept of higher or lower because Hashem's all over. Higher would mean closer, lower would mean further, but if he's all over, there's no closer and further. So now the Rebbe asks the question, what does Dira B'Tachtonim mean? What is this expression that the Medrash says? The whole purpose of creation is to create a dwelling place for Hashem in this low physical world. How could it be low if Hashem's all over? So the Alter Rebbe explains, what does Tachtonim mean? Of course, Hashem's all over. But higher and lower refer to how much godliness is revealed and felt. Of course, Hashem is all over. If godliness is revealed, we're closer to Hashem. If godliness is not to the essence of Hashem, the essence of Hashem, there's no difference. But if you're talking about feeling Hashem, the more you feel Hashem, the closer you are, the higher you are. The less you feel Hashem, the less close you are to Hashem. What is Zira Tachtonim? The Alter Rebbe says, when it says Tachtonim, the lowest worlds, it means lowest, that there can't be anything lower. And it's interesting. Every generation we think, that's it, we're the lowest. And thank God, Hashem shows us the next generation that comes is even lower than the first one. And we see this progressing now constantly in the world. So the Alter Rebbe says, what does Dira B'Tachtonim mean? It means in a world which is void from feeling godliness, from perception of godliness, from understanding godliness, in that world, Hashem wants us to make a dwelling place. How do we do it? Because we have a godly soul, and the godly soul comes into the animal soul that gives us life, and it controls it. The Alter Rebbe said before in Tanya, the mind controls the heart. The mind represents the godly soul, which is primarily in the head. The animal soul represents animalistic things, which are primarily in the heart. So when a person controls the heart through the mind, that means instead of thinking evil, you think Torah. Instead of speaking evil, you speak Torah. Instead of doing action of evil, you do Torah. In Cain, so he says like this. So the guy is supposed to think to himself, so why in the world did Hashem send my neshama down here? Hashem sent my neshama down here to not for my soul's purpose, to elevate the world at large, the animal soul, the body, the Yetzer Hara, whatever you want to call them, to bring godliness into that world. Yes, through this, the neshama goes up to a place higher than it was before. But it's not to perfect the neshama. Hashem had this desire to create a Dira B'Tachtonim. Therefore, he says in Cain, second line of Mem Aleph, then if that's the case, there's only one thing for me to do. This will be my sole goal and aim. All the days of my existence, to occupy my spirit, my soul, in inyanim of elevating the world. Like the pasuk says in Tehillim, to you Hashem, I lift my soul. What does it mean now? How do I lift my soul to Hashem? So the Rebbe says, lekashe machshavti, to bind. How do we lift ourselves to Hashem? Hashem's all over. What do you mean we lift? Where are you going? You're going to forklift? It means lekashe machshavti, to bind. Not bind means you become kesher, means you become knotted, you become one. To bind machshavti, my thought, diburi, and my words, but machshavti v'diburi is barich, into Hashem's thought and into Hashem's speech. Meaning, in practical level, when somebody learns Torah, they speak the words of Hashem, their physical, animal soul, Yetzer Hara speech is being elevated to a godly state. That's creating the Dira B'Tachtonim. When I think Torah, and I think good thoughts, and I meditate in good thoughts, that thought, because it's Kedusha, that means what I'm doing now is, but physically I think through the animal soul. But now the animal soul's thought is controlled by the neshama, the godly soul. So therefore I am functioning in the animal soul, but what's functioning? My godly soul. And therefore through thought, I'm elevating the thinking power of the animal soul. Speech, elevating the animal, there's the speaking part of the soul. And he says that's the halachas haruchas tefanenu, the set halachas that we have. The chen ma'isa, and the same thing when we do action. It becomes by b'ma'isa mitzvah. When a person takes his physical hand that normally lives from the animal soul, and the person gives tzedakah, they put on tefillin, they bench shlich, they put bench lulav, whatever the mitzvah may be. There's 248 choices. What happens then? My hand becomes one with Hashem. But Dr. Rebbe said it before in Tanya, he's going to say it later in Tanya. It says, Yad HaMechalik Tzedakah, when a hand takes money and gives it to tzedakah, either to a poor man in a pushka or whatever. At that moment, when the hand is doing a mitzvah, the mouth is speaking Torah, the mind is thinking Torah. At that moment, the person is becoming what's called Merkava, the chariot of Hashem, which means the rider leads the chariot where it wants to go. When you give tzedakah, Hashem is Kaviyachol riding your hand and making it give tzedakah. And the Merkava is completely bottled to Hashem. The Ovis, Hein Merkava, they were Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were Merkava. The thing is, they were Merkava 24/7. We, a minute after giving tzedakah, can do something wrong with it, can hit somebody. But that time a person does a mitzvah, at that moment he's becoming connected to Hashem. And in Perek Chafei earlier we learned, now the Rebbe says, not only the minute you gave tzedakah, because you're connecting yourself to Hashem, which is above time and place. So when you give tzedakah, you learn Torah, you do a mitzvah, it's not only that you're connected that minute, you are permanently connected to Hashem, because Hashem is above time and space, time and place. So now the Rebbe says here, the person realizes, so why am I here? I didn't put my neshama in the body, Hashem did. Why did Hashem put my neshama in the body? Because Hashem wants me to elevate the world at large, starting my own animal soul and body, my environment, the world at large. Because every mitzvah a Jew does, the Rambam says, the world is on an equally balanced scale. You do a mitzvah, the whole world is brought down to Kedusha. You do an Aveda, the whole world is brought down to Aveda. Somebody asked the question, this means that there's no evil in the world, it's only a disguise for the hidden spark that need to be elevated, correct. But there's two levels of evil. There's a level of evil that cannot be elevated, so that has to be completely negated. Neutral level, from Klipas Naga, things that are permissible, so those, yes, we need to elevate it. So Ra is only really not a realistic term. It's only the fact that Hashem is concealed. And because Hashem is not concealed and he's not revealed, therefore it's called evil. So he says like this. Therefore, Torah is called restoring my soul. What do you mean returning my soul? Meshiva means returning. Limkeda v'sharsha, through doing mitzvahs, we return the neshama, the godly soul that came down into the world. We are elevating it back to where it came from. And therefore, remember, he said before, you have to have a lot of simcha because you realize what you're accomplishing. And that's why Valzen Nama, therefore, concerning this, it says, Pikudi Hashem, the mitzvahs of Hashem, Yesharim are right, Misamchalev, they make us happy. Why do they make us happy? Because a person, when they do a mitzvah, if they realize what they're doing, that they're actually accomplishing the mission why Hashem sent us down into the world, to elevate the world. And when you do thought, speech, and action of Torah mitzvahs, you are controlling the thought, speech, and action of the animal soul. And therefore you elevate all of this to Kedusha. So he says, you have to be happy. Yes, you have to think you're worthless and you're very far from Hashem. But that is supposed to motivate us, Alter Rebbe says, to do more. What is doing more? Become closer to Hashem. If we're closer to Hashem, then we're great. Now start Perek Lamed Beis. The Rebbe said many, many times, everything in Tanya is exact. Perek Lamed Beis, 32nd chapter. Lamed Beis, as we know, is Lev, heart. This Perek of Lamed Beis, the Alter Rebbe speaks about the mitzvah of loving another Jew. Okay? And the Rebbe says, why did the Alter Rebbe put this in Perek Lamed Beis of Tanya? He says, because this is the heart of the whole Tanya, which is the Torah Shebiksav of Chassidus. In other words, the essence and the heart and the core of all of Torah mitzvahs, as we'll see, is the mitzvah of loving your fellow Jew. And Alter Rebbe in Perek Lamed Beis is going to ask, how in the world is that possible? It's impossible. And many commentaries say it's impossible. And Alter Rebbe is going to explain, based on what we learned before, it is possible. Not that it's easy, but it's possible. And he says like this. And now, by fulfilling the things he said before. What did he say before? That his body should be and scorned, and despicable in his own eyes. What should the real simcha of the Jew be? Simchas hanefesh levada, the joy of the nefesh. The whole thing that the Rebbe explained before, what do you break yourself for? You're not breaking your neshama. In the old Lamed Aleph and before that, the Alter Rebbe is explaining we need to break the animal soul. We need to break, not break the body, but the whole concept of Baal Shem Tov is to work with the body. But what he means is to break the evil of the body. Not to break the body. The body is just a vehicle. The body could be used for good and could be used for bad. Okay? What our job is not to break the body, to elevate the body to do only good. That's a much greater accomplishment than breaking the body, as we will discuss as we go on. So the Alter Rebbe is saying the whole concept before what he's speaking is that the body should be despicable. It's dirt. We are originating dirt. We go back to dirt. It's putrid drops. All the things Alter Rebbe said before that the body is really nothing. Yeah. He says if you realize that, and the simcha is only nefesh levada, only the nefesh. Harezu derech yeshara v'kala. This is a straight, easy way to come to the mitzvah of Yohavta l'reacha kamecha. meaning as follows. I mentioned before, a lot of the commentaries ask, the Ramban, a lot of commentaries ask, how is it possible to love us, to love another Jew? There's a few problems with it, by the way. Number one, generally speaking, how can you command somebody to love? It's the famous question of the Mitzvah Maggid. The Maggid says there's certain mitzvahs, okay, that the mitzvah is to love or fear. We have a mitzvah, Shema v'ahavta Hashem Elokecha. You have to love God with all your heart and all your soul. V'ahavta re'echa kamecha. You have to love another Jew. The positive mitzvah. There's a very simple question the Maggid asks. I can command you to do or not to do. I can command you to think or not to think. But a feeling, I can't command a person to feel something that they don't. Okay? How can I command somebody to love? I can tell you eat broccoli even though you hate it. I can tell you don't eat ice cream even though you love it. I can tell you in action, but in a feeling, how can I tell you love? I don't love him. I'll do whatever. I do all the mitzvahs you want. I don't love him. How do you want me to turn on the on button? And the question here is even more. All the Rishonim that Rabbi brings down, what does it mean? The ahavta re'acha kamecha. Okay, it says, in fact, the Ramban. There's a Ramban. Anyway, but the Ramban, okay, let's analyze this. Let's mention the question. Love somebody else like yourself? That's impossible. I love somebody else because I see the person's greatness. I love somebody else because they're nice to me. But whoever I love is not me. I love me because I'm me. It doesn't matter if I'm good, bad, ugly, gorgeous, wonderful, despicable. I love me because I'm me. How can I expect that somebody else that I love, why do you love somebody else? Because you love somebody else because you like what they do. How can I expect, it says, the Ramban asks, how can a person accept to love somebody else as much as they love themselves? I can't, I mean, just think about it. I come first. How in the world can I love somebody else? And the Torah says, the Torah doesn't say you should love him, period. You should love him as much as he is yourself. Okay? So many Rishonim, by the way, the Rebbe brings down, many Rishonim say, and Al Rebbe is going to differ with them. Many Rishonim say, commentaries of the Chumash say, and commentaries of mitzvahs, it doesn't mean you should love them like yourself. It means you should act towards them like you would act towards yourself. Okay, that's feasible. Okay? Just like I want something, I'll give it to you because you want it. Just like whatever. But and because of this question, the Rishonim say it's impossible to demand from somebody to love somebody like you love yourself. So there's two questions over here. B'chlal, how can I, generally speaking, how can I command somebody to love? You can't command a feeling. You can command thought, speech, and action. Okay? Hashem did something bad to me. I'm angry at him. I don't like him anymore. Chas v'sholom, right? So now the question is, how can we turn on, okay, now I love you. I mean, we're talking about real. I'm talking about fake stuff. We're talking about real. So how in the world can I love Hashem? And the question is even more. How is it possible? Kamaycha, And he says, L'chol nefesh mi Yisrael, to love every single Jew, l'migodol vat katan, from the greatest Jew, the highest level Jew, to the lowest low-life Jew. And now the Rebbe says now, this by understanding what we learned in the previous chapter about how despicable the body is. And the whole purpose is the simcha of the neshama, going out of the body by doing mitzvahs to become closer to Hashem. The Alter Rebbe says, and listen what the Alter Rebbe says, it's derech yeshara v'kala. It is direct and easy way to come to the mitzvah of kamecha, to every single Jew, that you love every single Jew as much as you love yourself. It's a very difficult thing. In fact, the Rebbe quotes over here, there's a Yerushalmi. For instance, it speaks about why can't you take revenge? Because just like you don't take revenge on yourself, you shouldn't. This is what the Yerushalmi explains. There's mitzvah to tell you now take revenge. Okay? We spoke about the Shabbos and Shul. Why can't they take revenge? So according to Yerushalmi, Talmud Yerushalmi says, because you never take revenge against yourself. If the left hand did something to the right hand, or the right hand did something to the left hand, or to any other part, what are you going to take revenge against yourself? He says, if you realize you have to, you love the other person as much as you love yourself, then you won't do any revenge, because you don't take revenge from yourself. Why should I take revenge from somebody else? All the mitzvahs which are bein adam l'chaveirei, between man to man, a person will never do it against himself. So if the mitzvah is kamecha, to love him as much as you love yourself, then why in the world would a person do it? And they won't do it. And let me tell you, it's late already. But eventually we'll see that the definition of kamecha doesn't mean love your neighbor as yourself. Kamecha means because he is yourself. And Dr. Rebbe is now, well, not tonight, but maybe next week. Dr. Rebbe is going to explain that really me and you and him and her are the same thing. And therefore, just like I love myself, I have to love you because you are a part of me. Because we are all one. So we have to, and again, Dr. Rebbe is going to elaborate on this very beautifully. We're going to take time talking about this because it's fundamental aspect in Chassidus. But Dr. Rebbe is going to eventually explain that you know what the mitzvah is? To realize that him and you are the same thing. The right hand loves the left hand, and the left hand loves the right hand, and they both love the stomach and the foot and the brain and that. Even when you get a headache, and because of that you're dysfunctional, the hand is not going to beat up the brain for being dysfunctional. Why not? Because the brain and the hand is the same thing. Okay, anyway, to be continued. Anyway, everybody have a great Shabbos. Mitzvah Shem, we'll see you hopefully Monday night.